So I've got my mind on pricing once again. And this has come out of a couple of developments of things that I'm working on. Welcome to the MVA daily vlog. I'm Joshua Hardesty, reporting not quite so live from Golden Valley, Minnesota. And so I have figured out the rates for our work, and I have figured out these methods that we're going to use. And one of the things that we've been thinking about, and frankly I have been thinking about it forever but never really committed to it, is the idea of productizing services or certain services. That is, taking something and defining it and then selling it as a kind of product. So a very simple one would be, if you're doing a poster design and you know how long it almost always takes and what it always costs, instead of having somebody be like, I want a poster, can I have a proposal? You instead go, a poster costs this much, and this is what happens, and this is the deliverable, and maybe you have a good, better, best kind of tiered pricing thing. So I've been thinking about that a lot because I've been thinking about a couple things. I think about stuff for people who are at a kind of entry level or startup level, that it would be a lot easier to just go, here's a package of, we're going to do this, this, and this for you, and it costs this much, and it's enough to get you started or enough to go just above. But then the other thing you start to think about is that as a graphic designer, you're constantly like, oh, it depends about price or about timing or whatever. But ultimately, it kind of doesn't depend, because you kind of do the same thing all the time. Like if you had your way, it wouldn't depend. Identity systems would take this long, posters would take this long, websites would take however long they take. So it's actually sort of like reality makes these things very variable and constantly changing, but it's not like that's what you want. You know, if you start to have these different methods, you're not that far from productizing the services anyway. And so the thing that I'm thinking about is where to do this, how to start, and how to make it work. Because what you see with a lot of places that do this is they then really niche down and specialize, so that they don't have this overwhelming palette of offerings. They pick a few things, or like 3 big subjects and 3 packages for each, and then after that they say, like, if you need something else, just call us. And that's hard for graphic designers, because if you think about like the services list for most graphic design studios, it's really, really long, because basically it's one process that you can apply across the board to lots of stuff. So you could imagine if you were then trying to take that services list and figure out what the different products would be, and what if they're going to be tiered, or like how are you going to figure it out, and like who is it for. That's what I'm working through right now. I'm starting with album art because we've done more of that in the last 2 or so years than anything else, and I really like doing it. I want to do a lot more of it, and it's very fast. So like trying to pick that apart, because there's all these different needs depending on where you're at, and thinking about like scalability and stuff. I don't know. That's what I'm doing right now. I think we're actually, in the same way that we actually did commit to methodologies, I think we will commit to productizing these services and basically having a services page that's more like a store, even though you won't be able to just add something to the cart, but you'll go like, oh, okay, so as I'm looking at album cover art, these are the different tiers that are based on how much time and attention we can give based on a budget. and stuff like that, so that we can kind of cover from the entry level, almost like hobbyist artist that's just starting to put stuff out to somebody with major label backing, and the kind of tiers in between that, just hurting the hell out of my brain, but it does give you a lot of clarity. It's weird because traditional graphic design companies that do good work, so I see it for very kind of middle of the road, not super exciting stuff. So it'd be interesting to see, can a serious graphic design studio pull this off? We'll find out. Thanks for watching. If you have a question or comment, leave it. If you know of any design studios that have done this, that do actual good work, please let me know. And don't use the examples of all these places that start doing like workshops. I don't give a shit about workshops. I want to know like who says we do this, it costs this much, period, end of story. All right, thanks a lot.
So a little follow-up to that video about productizing your services. I'm stumbling over my words. I just finished putting together the first 4 products, I guess. I don't know, it's hard to explain, that are specifically geared towards doing record covers. And if they're not live by the time this video comes out, there'll be a link in the description. And if you click on that link, read through what's there and fill out a short 4-question yes or no type survey, we'll give you a coupon for 20% off anything in our online shop. But back to the productizing thing, it's really enlightening to really try to define what the difference is between the things that you're doing in these different contexts and how you're going to decide what's more expensive and what's cheaper, not just in terms of the stuff that has more labor, but also the way I've broken out the prices, the pricing is all at the floor level for basically DIY independent artists who are maybe just like straight up at the hobby stage. If they make a physical record, there's no way they're making 500 copies. You know, like if they're on Spotify, they have less than 10,000 monthly listeners. And then figuring out these kind of thresholds above that for when price changes kick in. And it's really interesting because everyone knows in graphic design that you charge the bigger clients more money and the smaller clients less money, but everyone still tries to be profitable. And if they don't try to be profitable, you have to figure out how to be like weaselly, so that like if you're paying somebody a little bit of money, if someone's paying you a little bit of money, you're trying to figure out how you can work the process to where you can afford to do the project. Or you decide, well, I'm doing this, I'll make it a portfolio piece and then it'll be fine. And I think both of those options are kind of imperfect, because unless you come out right away to people and you say, I'm doing this, I want it to be a portfolio piece, therefore I need creative freedom, that's an honest thing to do. Is it a good thing to do? I don't know about that. But then what everyone does otherwise is they try to take the real design process, the one where you do your research and you come up with concepts, and they try to compress it in a way to where they can take little projects and get enough money, or not take on too much of a loss. But the problem is the design process takes as long as it takes. And like I was listening to one of those Future videos, or The Future, and they were talking about pricing, and they were specifically talking about the fact that the small client and the big client are going to pay 2 different prices, and the small client's work is going to take just as long. But it sounded like there was an implication that the small client's work they were going to take a loss on. And we'll see how successful I am with this, but I'm setting it up to where the small client, I don't take a loss on their project. They don't get a half-assed version of a process. They get a process that I think guarantees results for the time on it, and they pay for a very focused amount of time. So I don't do a thing where I'll sneak it in between stuff. I'm setting it up in such a way as to say, this gives you these deliverables, and my process is going to be this much time spent making sure you get those deliverables. So that at the smallest level, I'm doing valuable work and being compensated for it. And I have to be honest, I actually did like discount the prices quite a bit, but they're still reasonable for like my time spent on it. It's not like the kind of thing where I'm gonna be like, oh God, why did I agree to do this? And then from that, there'll be these thresholds that go from, you know, somebody with 10,000 monthly listeners on Spotify or 10,000 followers on Instagram or whatever, up to say 40, from 40 up to like 150, and then 150 plus. And the prices will move up from there, and the idea is to be unbelievably transparent. So that's an experiment. I guess this is a little part 2 of the video that, well, I was gonna say the video you just watched. I've never done this thing of like editing them together to make a coherent thought, so this is the first. I hope that you're doing awesome. It is a Friday as I record this, and life is good. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, anything that you would like me to talk about in a video, leave a comment down below. Thanks.